Let's talk a little more about the events of today and what more is to come. Joining us on set is Zeidon Alkinani, a lecturer of Middle Eastern politics at Georgetown University here in Qatar, and of course Al Jazeera's Nida Ibrahim. Zeidon, if I could start with you, I want to ask you about the bigger picture first, because this is very much Trump's show, isn't it? What do you think his visit first to Israel, then his visit to Egypt, is about? Is this just a victory lap, celebrating the release of Israeli captives, or is this a bigger, more calculated move to put pressure on Netanyahu?
It can definitely be both. Trump is viewing this as a short-term gain for a future campaign, for a presidency that has been presented as being much more better than the previous Biden administration. He's presenting himself as a man of peace who was able to achieve something that wasn't being able to be achieved by many regional and international leaders. There is also the business element that is very publicly and openly being declared by his administration and many of his associates, including relatives, who are being very open about their investment plans in the Gaza Strip. Whereas for the people of Gaza and even for the Israeli entity, this is much more of an existential threat. There's a lot of drastic and detrimental calculations that they will have to look at in the longer term. But we can't deny that there has definitely been disagreements along the way behind closed doors between Netanyahu's government and Trump's administration, where one side wanted to ensure that they could continue the conflict or the genocide in a way to ensure their interests are presented and established in a much more longer path, whereas the other side would be looking for the victory and the victory lap that is being presented today.
Zeidon, several points today we heard Donald Trump say the war is over. It seemed incredibly definitive. How important is that message coming from him, particularly at this moment, not just to the Israelis, but to the Arabs who are meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh?
It really depends on the intentions behind Trump's administration and what do they mean by the war is over, right? The war didn't begin in October 7. The war has been there, in the conflict and the invasion and the occupation, and the legal settlements have been built for decades. If the war is over being only considered from October 7, then that means we're only solving 1% of the issue. The 99% of the issue is an occupation that has existed for many, many years. We need to look at the Palestinian issue and the Palestinian cause in a much more drastic and a much more established way, rather than looking at it from October 7.
Well, on that point, he did actually say that he has brought peace to the Middle East, and he talked about it in something of a wider scale. Is that significant? Well,
peace in the Middle East would not be enough to be looked at or assessed from one peace treaty or one peace summit. We need to see what's going to happen in the future. It's very tricky to assume that Israel will respect a peace treaty once the media and the shedded light that is focusing on this topic has decreased, right? Israel has attacked Gaza before, once there has been ceasefires and truces that has been agreed with the involvement of international and regional actors. But if we are to look at perhaps a vision that Trump might be looking towards the beyond region, his administration and Netanyahu's government isn't looking at Gaza as a strip that belongs to a potential Palestinian statehood. They're connecting Hamas to a proxy network that belongs to the Islamic Republic of Iran, which creates another problematized approach by the West, by the Trump administration, by Israel, in looking at Hamas as part of this overarching proxy network of Iran, as if the Islamic Republic of Iran invented the Gaza Strip.
Nida, if I can come to you, what are Palestinians thinking today? They are, of course, incredibly happy about the nearly 2,000 Palestinians that have been released from Israeli jails. It is a huge moment for many of them. But are many of them also now thinking, what happens tomorrow? What happens the day after? Is this real?
Yes, and that's why many of them have been saying, did you watch us on October 6th and on October 5th and October 4th to see what was happening to us before Israel attacked Gaza in response, they say, for October the 7th attacks in 2023. And the reality is that Palestinians have been lingering under Israel's military occupation for decades. And in fact, talking about the media attention and all of the world's eyes now turning to Gaza, to Sharm el-Sheikh, to the region. That's exactly what Israel has done in 1993 when it signed agreements with the PLO, when it said it's starting a peace process. But within these Oslo Accords were the very reasons that they would fail later on, because Israel maintained control over territories that it said it would hand over later when it comes to the security, when it comes to building permits. But then they maintained that control one way or another. And then they've used several ways to say, and several reasons to say, we have reasons to believe that the Palestinian Authority did not abide by its end of the bargain, basically giving to themselves the justification to continue with their occupation. Because at the essence of the right wing in Israel and many Israelis right now, the issue of the occupied West Bank might be considered occupied under international law and under international community, but you have Israelis who talk about it as if it's Israeli territory that has been given to the Israelis by biblical commands. So there are a big chunk of the Israelis who are not intending to leave the illegal Israeli settlements on the ground, who are not intending to give Palestinians their sovereignty and their right to self-determination. And at the very same time that Israel was negotiating these peace talks and continuing to talk after the Oslo Accords were signed, they continued to build illegal Israeli settlements. They continued to make the very very limited control of the Palestinian Authority even less effective and less diminished, and more diminished, I should say, and basically isolating the Palestinian communities from one another. The fact that many Palestinians now in the occupied West Bank cannot go to Gaza even before the war has been the very result of the Israeli measures on the ground that disconnected Palestinians from one another, including now, as we see, putting military checkpoints in between cities, towns and villages, basically turning them into small cantons to kind of diminish and stop any aspiration for Palestinians to have a unified, contiguous state with sovereignty.
Zeidon, Nida raises a very, very critical point here, the occupation. That is still ongoing. And the point is, we have a 20-point peace plan that Donald Trump has put forward, and there's no mention of occupation in the entire plan.
Yeah, well, that's one of the main cores behind the concerns here, right? It's very alarming that we are only looking at this political development as a timeline between October 7 until now, and that as long as this war is over, it just feels like we're trying to remove a headache from Israel, a headache that wasn't been able to be limited by its Israeli military and technological capabilities against a strip that is stuck between two or three different countries. Meaning the plan and the proposed plan by Trump seems like it's a peace treaty and a peace summit to end the current conflict and not look at the beyond picture, the overarching picture of what led to the accumulated events for decades to take us to October 7 and what might lead to the further political developments by the very same political entity that is openly claiming that it will continue to attack Hamas tunnels once this peace summit is over. The last time we heard about Hamas tunnels being targeted, it included schools, children, families, hospitals and churches and mosques and many other civilian areas. The occupation has been ongoing despite different treaties and conventions and summits and conferences and agreements between Israel and other Arab states. It continued when normalization waves have been taking place for the past few years. Illegal settlements were built even against the recommendations and the calls of the United Nations and the European Union, which included some of the most prominent and vital allies of Israel today.
Nida, more evidence of the double